Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sunday service for January 2024. Today, we're going to be talking about ways to develop inner guidance, or how to tap into your natural connection to the wholeness of life, or natural connection to divinity, and how to respond to that guidance. But before we do, let's take some time to do a centering meditation. So if you would, sitting up straight, closing your eyes, direct your awareness to your body and feel the breath. Feel your awareness moving into the breath, into the core, into the essence of your being. Feel as though you are able to sense the reality, the ocean of spirit within and around you. Give yourself permission to feel supported by and a part of the wholeness of life. We'll take a moment to honor and acknowledge the teacher representatives of this Kriya Yoga tradition who've made it possible for us to be here today. Their life, their example, their teachings, which have persisted through time, given us the capacity to learn how to meditate, to benefit from the ancient teachings of yoga for the purpose of realizing yourself, realizing your innate divine nature. So we'll honor and acknowledge Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahasaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, Roy Eugene Davis, and their successors. We'll also take a moment to honor and acknowledge all authentic enlightenment and spiritual teachers in all religions, knowing that that same light of spirit that we appreciate in these teachers and these spiritual guides is the exact same light that is within our own heart, within our own body, within our own life. Now, when you're ready, you can take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, open your eyes and conclude the short centering meditation. Okay, well, today we're going to talk about how to cultivate or tap into inner guidance. I didn't initially call this tapping into divine guidance because, in a way, it seems like we are always being guided by divinity. One way or another, we're always being guided by divinity. And so it's really just a natural part of life, this ability to tap into inner wisdom. All we have to do is remove the obstacles to the possibility of that. And there are several ways to do that, and we'll talk about 2 or 3 of them. And we're also going to look at a verse within the Bhagavad Gita, which will help us understand this process, and a sutra from Sri Yukteswar's Holy Science. So what do we need to do, and what are the ways that we can tap into inner guidance or divine guidance? Well, the first one you are already doing, and we've begun doing it this morning, that is meditation. One of the reasons that meditation allows this to happen is because when you learn to sit still, to calm the mind, to release yourself from identification with the change and fluctuations of your life, your erratic thought patterns or your emotions, that gives you the ability to listen and to hear. And I don't simply mean just hear with your ears. I mean, hear what is the right thing to do, which is the right way to go, what is the right behavior to take. And this takes me back to some mythology from our world, and also some fantasy mythology. Way back in the beginning, when we look at the Bible, if you consider why we have an idea of evil, well, we have this idea that there's this being called Lucifer, and Lucifer was one of the greatest angels that God had, or God created, I suppose. But what happened? Lucifer wanted to do his own thing. So he was a profound being of good and a profound being of light, but again, using this metaphor, this allegory, I'm not saying this actually happened. This is just a way to think about it. This great being that God created had decided, well, I want to do my own thing. So individuality came about. And we are all here, we're all in this experience because on some level, we feel that we are an individual, separate from this wholeness of life, separate from the divine reality. And this all started because of this issue between between God and his greatest angel. Now, keep that in mind. Now, some of you might be Lord of the Rings fans. Any of you Lord of the Rings fans? No? Well, that's great. Well, roll with me on this one then. Well, in the Lord of the Rings, you might be familiar with The Hobbit and Mordor and the One Ring and all these kinds of things. But there is a mythology that Tolkien created behind this whole story, and it's very interesting. The original mythology was that there was this power, this force of good, this force of divinity, and there were all these other powers that threaded through it, and they were called, I think, the Ainur, which essentially translates to like angel or God. And what happened in this mythology was one day, one of these great good beings decided they didn't want to sing the harmony anymore because it was a song. They didn't want to sing the harmony anymore. And so this being decided to sing its own harmony, which created, disharmony and tension within the song. And so again, this is the emphasis towards individualization happening. And then, of course, we have some difficulties that arise from that. And in these mythologies, what we see is there is this wholeness, there is this oneness, and then there is an impulse towards becoming an individual, doing one's own thing. Now, if we go back to the Bible, I'm sure that's a safe bet. Many of you know about the story of Adam and Eve. Well, what's this whole idea about the knowledge of good and evil? Well, it wasn't that there were two beings in a garden and one actually ate an apple and all of a sudden were cursed. Those two beings, Adam and Eve, represent primordial aspects of our consciousness. The solar masculine aspect, Adam, the lunar, the feminine aspect, Eve, the receptive aspect, Eve, which can be related to the right and left sides of our brain and so on, this duality that we have. What happened? One of those beings, in a sense, acted outside of what they were supposed to do. They became an individual. And once our great ancestors, Adam and Eve, became an individual, that is the sin, in a way, that we suffer from. Because we all are wandering around thinking that we are individuals, when really we are part of this wholeness of life. We are a part of this thread of life, this weave, this tapestry of life. And so long as we maintain that feeling of separateness, we are going to see good and evil everywhere. We are going to see right and wrong everywhere. We're going to see decisions that don't work, and we're going to see decisions that do work. And this is, in a way, why we need inner guidance to navigate that. But the ultimate way to get this guidance isn't to continue to pick apart what is the rightest thing to do. The best way to develop inner guidance is to resolve the issue, which is to let go of this identification with, this attachment to being an individual, and recognizing you are part of the whole. That's what it boils down to. The fantasy mythology of Tolkien, the idea of Lucifer or Satan in the Bible, Adam and Eve, all these allegories, all of these stories are giving us insights into this. And this applies to yoga as well. In Samkhya philosophy, there is an idea that there was this undisturbed wholeness. And then something happened. We can't know that until we meditate on it. But what happens is Om develops, the word of God develops. This Om vibration comes forth. And then polarities begin to get set up. And then eventually we have a development of ahamkara, or ego. And again, in Samkhya philosophy and in these principles of yoga, the ego is primordial. It's not like your little ego. It's the fact that consciousness develops an ability to experience itself or see itself, imagine itself as a separate being, as a separate entity, as a separate individual. And that's where all the trouble happens, because in this diagram of creation from Samkhya philosophy, above the ego, above the ahamkara, above the sense of separateness, Sri Yukteswar calls this area in between pure consciousness, God as you cannot even conceive, through Om, down to the ego, just above the ego, Sri Yukteswar calls that the sons of God, and also the angelic state. And that's when there is creation, but there is knowledge of still being part of the music, still being part of the whole, still being part of the song, still being part of the weave. And that's why mystics and spiritual teachers, they don't feel like they are an individual. They feel that they are part of a wholeness that is interacting with itself. So what we're trying to do with our yoga and our meditation process essentially is eventually move beyond the sense of ego. Again, we don't have to kill our personality. You can still have a personality and know the truth of what you are, but rise above that so that you realize that you are part of the whole. Now, what does this have to do with the idea of divine guidance? My experience has been this. Saints that I have read about, great yogis that I have read about, and even 2 or 3 great yogis that I have known, they feel as though they are part of the whole, and their actions are an expression of this wholeness. And then the things that occur in their life, they don't label as good or bad. They're not using the knowledge of good and bad to say, this is good, this is bad. They see, feel, and experience the things that occur in their life as just an expression of the whole, an expression of the whole. So when something difficult happens to them, they get quiet, they get calm, they turn within, and they reflect upon what is the best way to engage this. And if a response arises, they follow that guidance, they follow that sense of direction. If nothing comes up, if nothing happens, they just endure, they're patient. Because their little human mind can't understand the wholeness of the weave of infinite consciousness. But they know that that they are not just these little experiences that they're having. And so there's a sense of faith and there's a sense of trust there. And so they follow that guidance, they follow that faith, they follow that trust. And if it goes well, fantastic. If it doesn't go so well, that's just part of the weave. That's just part of the pattern. That's just part of this whole expression of infinite consciousness that we cannot understand as a limited human being. And this is the difficult part, or one of the difficult parts of the whole spiritual process and spiritual path, is getting beyond your little desires. It's getting beyond provincial viewpoints. And Mr. Davis would talk about this a lot. He would say, don't be provincial, don't be small-minded. Learn to expand your consciousness. And the reason we learn to expand our consciousness is to get that sense that maybe there's a lot more going on here than we can conceive, again, with our little human minds. And as we start to develop that faith and that expansion of consciousness, what eventually begins to occur is you can't describe it. You can't write a book about it. You can't even think about it. But it's almost as if a part of you steps into a whole other reality, a whole other way of being, which doesn't require judgments, which doesn't require concepts, which doesn't require you to determine what is right or wrong. And there's a freedom there. Now, I'm not going to go into this because I know most of you are mature enough to not have to worry about, well, are you saying that good and evil doesn't exist and that we can do whatever we want? You know that's not what I'm saying. And those of you who might think that, there's a reason that we have the yamas and niyamas, the religious observances, to be truthful, to be harmless, to not steal, to be compassionate, to surrender in God. All of those are there, so you don't have to worry about all this, can I do whatever I want nonsense. If you're a yogi, you follow the yamas and the niyamas. And then as you meditate, you start to gain a greater sense of attunement to this vaster reality. It's almost a sense of openness. And then you do your best in life, and you realize that every step of the way, you actually are being guided. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had this experience, and I've known quite a few people who've had this experience. Well, when you quit complaining, and when you quit thinking that there's something out to get you. I remember when I went through a very difficult period of time, one of the first things that Mr. Davis said to me when I walked into the chalet to meet him for tea and to visit, first thing he said to me was, you know, Ryan, there's not an evil force that's out to get you, right? and I knew that. But many of us think that we are combating some kind of evil, when really all we're combating is the sense of individuality. And again, you might have experienced this, other people might have experienced this. When difficult things have happened in your life, if you can be calm, if you can do your best, you don't want to just let every bad thing happen. You do take precautions, right? You don't not put money in retirement and wonder why you don't have any money to retire when you're old. You put your money into retirement and then you see what happens, but you don't get stressed out about it. You don't exercise and drink your herbs and do all these things to make you healthy, and then be concerned if later it doesn't quite work out. It usually will, but if it doesn't, there might be some reason as to why things that you've tried so hard to do didn't quite work out. So you have to find a way to trust. And what you'll notice is once you develop that sense of trust, even when things don't quite go your way, if you can stop and get calm and clear inside and ask, what is this about? What is this for? What you often find is, maybe not immediately, but within days and weeks and months as they go by, as you reflect upon this, depending on the severity of what you went through, you might actually develop an understanding, a greater expanded understanding of why this happened. And then you see how it fits within the tapestry of life. But this is a very hard thing to do. Most people can't do it. But as yogis, this is where we are going. This is what we're aiming to focus on. I was reading a lot about Ramakrishna recently, and many of you know that I am very much interested in Ramana Maharshi. Well, Ramana Maharshi died of cancer. Ramakrishna died of throat cancer. So they went through some difficult things, but they stayed within this field of clarity, within this field of awareness. And that's really where our inner guidance comes from. It's by learning to do our best, to live in accord with the yamas and niyamas, but to stay within this field of faith, of strength, of connection to the wholeness of life. And if you're in a place where you can't feel that, and you can't understand how anyone could feel that, believe me, I've been in a place like that before. What you have to do is find a way. Your goal isn't necessarily to spend all of your energy contending with things that happen that you couldn't control. Your goal is to find a way to recognize and learn that sense of, why was your will done, divine? Why was your will done in this way? Thy will be done. That's a very common phrase to hear in religious circles, and it takes us back. If God's greatest angel had just stuck with the tune and said, sure, of course, you're the director, thy will be done, that wholeness would have been maintained. If that being in Tolkien's legends and myth had decided to continue to sing in harmony with the wholeness, the web, the song of life, then there wouldn't have been this great difficulty within the world. If our primordial ancestors, Adam and Eve, had been able to trust and stay attuned to this wholeness and not worry about the judgments of how should this be, how shouldn't that be, then we wouldn't be suffering from the sense of individuality. So in order to cultivate inner guidance, what we really need to do is to recognize that we are part of a wholeness. And that comes about by meditating regularly, by practicing our pranayama, which allows our mental, emotional, energetic body to be calm and clear, by taking care of the quality of the people in our lives, because those who we surround ourselves with affects how we see the world. It's not about saying one is bad or one is good. It's, does one support our ability to realize wholeness? It could be that in the beginning, you definitely have to say that person is a bad influence and stay away from them. It might be because you're not strong enough to see the wholeness of life. But as you continue to meditate, as you continue to engage your spiritual practice, what happens is you start to, then you can spend time with anybody. You might not choose to because, well, you don't like what they're up to and you don't want to get involved in that. But you can spend time with anybody. And it doesn't affect your inner state of knowing, your inner state of awareness, your inner state of clarity. But before you get there, you do have to kind of push things away a little bit, but not out of the sense of, is this good? Is this bad? It's just, I am moving in this direction. I want to accomplish this thing, and then we'll see what happens. Now, we'll take a moment to look at Sri Yukteswar's Holy Science, and we'll pull up the Gita before we meditate. In Sri Yukteswar's Holy Science, in chapter 3, the procedure, the first two sutras are very important. He talks about, in a sense, what is our spiritual practice? And then he talks about one of the most important pillars of that. And I know you've heard me discuss this before. In Sutra 1, tapas, or sacrifice, is penance, self-study, and keeping the Supreme Spirit. So essentially what he's saying is the procedure of waking up is tapas, which is penance, self-study, learning what's going on, and then keeping the Supreme Spirit, staying attuned to this wholeness of life. And in the Holy Science, the way that Sri Yukteswar recommends staying attuned to the wholeness of life is by listening to a tune of the Om vibration. In Sutra 2, he describes what tapas is, and tapas is our spiritual practice. It's that which ripens us for these higher realizations. He says that tapas, or spiritual practice, is forbearance in encounters with the material world. Forbearance in encounters with the material world. The reason I like this sutra so much is because it's telling us directly what our spiritual practice is meant to be. Yes, we meditate regularly. We get good at accessing higher states of consciousness. We get good at developing a capacity for super consciousness. That is also spiritual practice. That is a technique. But we're not doing that all the time. But we are living all of the time. We are existing in this world all of the time, at least at this point, while we've got a body. Which means, what is our spiritual practice at all times while we are in this world? It is forbearance or endurance of that which we experience while we are here. So experiencing it, responding to it, but not getting destroyed by it or lost in it or caught up in it. That is the ultimate tapas, the ultimate spiritual practice. Because once you start to get that capacity, then your meditations become much clearer. They become much more effective. Because why can't you meditate? Why can't most people meditate? Because they're thinking about this, they're thinking about that, they're concerned about this, they don't want that to happen, they want this to happen. They're all over the place with their attention. But if you practice tapas, as Sri Yukteswar describes it, forbearance in interactions with the material world, you're not going to let it bother you. You are still practicing the yamas and niyamas, which means you are still going to be a successful, helpful, positive force in the world, but you are not letting the things that occur in your life overrun your inner consciousness. So this is one thing that we have to do. And as you start to engage tapas in that way, it is much easier for you to listen to and feel inner guidance, because rather than getting caught up in all of the input that's coming in about this, that, or the other, you're able to just let it go, turn within, and wonder. What needs to be done now? What is thy will? What is the will of the infinite? What is the will of spirit? What is the will of this divine creation which has created this body and this mind and is flowing through me? And you're able to hear it, again, not in someone talking in your ear. It's just a knowing. Go do this, or don't do anything, or just be still. This is one way to develop inner guidance. From the Bhagavad Gita, and this is The Eternal Way by Mr. Davis. In the second chapter, the Yoga of Knowledge of the Imperishable, there are a series of verses which are very useful in this regard. verses 47 through 51. So listen very carefully, and I'm sure you're familiar with these, but listen anyway. You have a right to action only, not to the results of actions. Let not the results of actions be your motive. Neither let there be any attachment to inaction. Firmly established in self-realization, do the work at hand, giving up attachment to it, be even-minded in both success and failure, for truly mental poise is yoga. Now this last verse, verse 48, that's pretty much exactly what Sri Yukteswar was saying in the Holy Science. I'll read it again. So Sri Yukteswar was saying, tapas or spiritual practice is forbearance in relationship to your experiences in the material world, the material creation. So not getting too caught up in it. Practice the yamas and niyamas, do your best to let it go. Now, in the Gita, Krishna says that firmly established in self-realization, do the work at hand, giving up attachment to it, be even-minded in both success and failure, for truly mental poise is yoga. And it's that last line that really resonates with what Sri Yukteswar said. Truly mental poise is yoga. Mere action alone is inferior to the discipline of intelligence. Those who work for results alone are to be pitied. One who has realized the true self abandons both the good and the ungood. Therefore, aspire to the yoga of self-knowledge. Skillful action is yoga. The wise who have actualized enlightenment, who have renounced the results of actions and are free from compulsion to be reborn, are beyond sorrow because established in soul bliss. There's a lot in this passage. In verse 51, who has realized the true self abandons both the good and the ungood. Now again, this doesn't mean that you just do whatever you want. What this is saying is the person has let go of defining how they judge what happens in life. But knowing that the eternal way, the Bhagavad Gita, is based upon the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it is very clear that the practice of the yamas and niyamas still remain intact. And ultimately, with these these 5 verses, what we learn is that we have to practice our Kriya Yoga. We have to practice our yoga path so we become self-realized. And it is absolutely possible for all of us to do that, no matter who we are, no matter what situation we're in, no matter what job we have or don't have. We can practice Kriya Yoga. We can be self-realized. Krishna said that skillful action is yoga. For skillful action to be yoga, here's what we have to remember. You're living your life. You are all individuals in the sense of your unique expression in this world. That's fine. We don't have to argue that point. But the core of all of us is the same. We don't all have one individual soul. We are part of a whole unified soul field. And we have this unique expression. And we meditate once or twice a day. And when we sit to meditate, that is what we are doing. We're not thinking about anything else. We're seeing how can we get into our techniques such that we experience stillness and silence while we are awake and aware and clear. We can actually experience it. We're not meditating to put ourselves into a stupor or a trance or take a nap to where we come out of it and we say, well, that was restful, but we don't remember anything that happened. So every day we meditate in this way. That is a duty. But you have work to do. You have activities to engage in as this expression of the infinite consciousness, which means once you're not meditating, then you are skillful in what you do. You do your best, ultimately. And if it works, wonderful. If it doesn't work, maybe you step back and say, well, what could I do differently? But if you are an expert and you do things well most of the time, and sometimes it doesn't work out, you just let that go because you're not entitled to that action. You don't know why it was supposed to fail, nor do you become over excited about things that go really, really well. And if you can live in this way, self-realization will develop naturally. And then you won't have questions about inner guidance because you will know that you are part of this wholeness. And you will know that, say you've got a health problem and someone says, go do this. And you feel that it is the right thing to do. And you do it and it works. Fantastic. Or you do it and it only kind of works. That's okay. It's the best you could do. Or you do it and it doesn't work at all. You take a deep breath in, you relax, and there must have been a reason why that was the case. So you can't drive yourself mad judging the reasons as to why things work and why they don't work. And the more you're able to do your best, let it go, you will become more and more clear. You will become more and more tuned into this sense of inner guidance. And one last thing I'll say before we meditate together. When it comes to being active in the world, trying to accomplish your inspired purposes and so on, whatever you are doing, do it with the sense of fulfillment. Why do I bring this up? Imagine that you've been told you need to exercise more. Well, if you go into the gym and you start exercising more with a sense of fear that you have to exercise, otherwise this bad thing will happen, you are sustaining the sense of fear. So someone tells you need to exercise more because maybe something bad is going to happen. Well, you need to practice looking at exercise in a joyful way. Look at it as though when you go into the gym, I'm so glad I have the opportunity to do this. I'm so glad I have the opportunity to make this change. And you feel more enthusiastic and full and supported because of it. Or if you have a health issue, everything that you do, if they tell you you need to change your diet, if they tell you you need to take a medicine or take some herbs or something like that, whatever you do, some of it might not be pleasant. But if you look at it with a sense of, I'm so glad I have this opportunity, that I have this support, that I have this medicine, that I have this procedure that I can do. And maybe you don't like running. I actually had a dream about that last night. I don't like running. Someone was telling me I needed to run, and I was explaining to them, you know what? Running is stupid. But let's say someone told me that, and I had to run for my health. Well, if I would go into it, I would get into my mind and realize that, yes, I think running is stupid, and I shouldn't be running unless a bear is chasing me. But I would say, all right, I'm so happy I have this opportunity to run. So you need to shift your experience from in a sense, the negative quality of fighting whatever it is you need to fight, and switch it to, I'm so glad I have this opportunity. Maybe you have the opportunity to build a business and someone says, it's going to be a lot of hard work. Well, every time you go in and you answer your emails and you send out these invoices and so on, you feel like, oh, yeah, I wish this business would just be built. Stop and pull back. And every single thing that you do, feel a sense, to the best of your ability, feel a sense of, I'm so glad I have this opportunity to do this work. So essentially, what I'm trying to get at here is, whatever you are doing in life as a unique expression of this individual consciousness, if you have a guidance to do something, or if you have if you've been given guidance by an actual expert, such as in the medical field or spiritual field or business field or relationship field, and they tell you things that you don't necessarily want to do, because sometimes we get inner guidance and we know we should do something, but we don't want to. Well, you have to do it. One of the best things to do is to get in your heart, and get into your brain. So you want to feel in your mind, your brain, you want to feel in your heart, and you want to recognize, what is it that I need to do such that I can understand that this is an opportunity. And I am thankful, I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to be able to participate in this experience, to engage in this healing process, to engage in overcoming this obstacle, and so on. If you can approach the different aspects of your life like that, you will be much happier. You will be much more successful. And when you're not successful, you will still be much happier and much more successful. This will be true for your meditation path, your yoga path. There are things, you know it, I know it, that you are supposed to be doing for yoga. And some people don't want to do it. But if you can recognize that and find a way to feel a sense of I'm so happy I have this opportunity. It'll make it much more effective for you. It'll work much quicker. And I don't wish this on anybody, but many of you who've gone through a lot of difficult things in your life, that feeling of being happy that you have the opportunity to do something. Maybe you've been knocked down with an illness. Maybe you've been injured. Maybe something really horrible has happened to you. But from that point forward, if you're not caught up in being all negative, anything that happens after that, you think to yourself, I'm really glad that I'm still here and I actually have this opportunity to participate in this. So I don't wish negative experiences on anybody. But if you've gone through that, you might see how even those negative experiences can give you a lot of appreciation for what you are capable of doing in this life. And we don't want to be Pollyanna about it. We don't want to be irrational and illogical, and we don't want to be silly about it. But there is something to be said for cultivating this sense of, I am so glad I can actually do this thing. I am so glad this challenge came because at least I'm functional enough to attend to it. And that'll be a good way to look at it. And every now and then there might be times when you absolutely have to surrender because there's nothing you can do. You've done your best. You don't want to beat yourself up about it. These are things that we learn. These are things that we develop as our consciousness expands, as we move into a greater state of self-realization. And all you have to do is, again, live in accord with the yamas and niyamas, study the Gita, practice the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, practice your Kriya Yoga practices. And if you can remain flexible, adaptable, don't get all stodgy or dogmatic, but really treat your whole process as though you are alive with it. You are able to participate with the adventure. Again, you will be much more happy and successful at the end of it all. So let's meditate together. So take a moment to just let go of everything we've been discussing. It'll be there in your consciousness, and you can reflect upon it later on today, how you can apply it to your life. Close your eyes and sit up straight. And turn your awareness inward into your body. And one of the best ways to do that is just to focus on the breath. Feel the breath as it flows in. Feel the breath as it flows out. You can bring your attention to the palms of your hands. Feel the temperature, the sensation, the warmth. Feel the sensitive area of the palms of the hands. And bring your awareness down to the soles of your feet, feeling the temperature, the sensation, the pressure within the soles of your feet. And bring your awareness to your heart. Feel the space within the heart. And when I say feel the space within the heart, there's nothing in particular I'm looking for. I just want you to acknowledge, how does your heart feel? How does the center of your chest feel? How do the muscles over your rib cage feel? How do your shoulder blades feel as the breath moves? The simple act of awareness brings the attention to the heart chakra. It engages the nervous system. It enlivens your capacity to feel. the field of awareness, the field of consciousness that you are a part of, the wholeness. Once again, we'll honor and acknowledge the teachers of the Kriya Yoga tradition. The state of consciousness that they represent is clarity, well-being, self-knowledge. Mahavatar Babaji, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, Paramahansa Yogananda, Roy Eugene Davis, and their successors. You can even take a moment to honor and acknowledge all of those Kriya Yogis all over the planet, both in this meeting, but also those who are meditating on their own for the purpose of self-knowledge, the purpose of recognizing their connection, their oneness with Source and divinity. And imagine that as a field, an electromagnetic field, or a spiritual field, which is luminous, iridescent, shining through your heart and throughout the planet. Now we'll engage in a simple meditation technique together, a mantra meditation technique. Keeping your awareness at the heart, feeling the sensation of the chest and the heart space. On the inhalation, mentally hear the syllable Om resonating within your heart, within your awareness. And on the exhale, mentally hear the syllable or the word peace resonant within your heart. And as you hear the syllable Om, imagine that this field of spiritual awareness is radiant white within you. And as you hear and feel the word peace, imagine, sense that the nervous system, the field of your being, is actually established in dynamic peace. It's a peacefulness, but it is alive. There's an aliveness to it. So for the next several minutes, we'll focus on this mantra, Om, peace, together within the heart chakra. And continue with the mantra, Om on the inhale, peace on the exhale. Now, part of this practice is cultivating greater body awareness, which also eventually leads us to greater awareness of the subtler field of our being. So what we want to do is, as we feel the heart, we want to gently feel as though our attention, our capacity for sensation is flowing up the spine from the heart, up to the shoulders, to the neck, to the jaw and the base of the skull, and up through the lower part of the brain, and keep going up until you get to what you might imagine to be the center of the cranium, the center of the skull. So be just above your ears, inwards from your temples, back behind your eyes, deep within the center of the nervous system, the brain. Feel that area. And as you inhale, you can imagine that air or life force or just energy, some kind of movement, is flowing into that area, a refreshing sensation. And as you exhale, there is a sense of flowing out, as though there is a refreshing, soothing feeling of life force or breath or prana flowing out in all directions. Inhale, the awareness flows in to the center of the brain, and you can chant Om in your mind, Om. And as you exhale, there is a sense of soothing peacefulness, moving out, flowing out gently in all directions. So we continue the mantra Om, peace, but our focus, our awareness is centered in the sixth chakra, deep within the nervous system. We'll just continue for a minute or two longer, but you can deepen the process by increasing your sensitivity, by trying to feel a little more deeply as you inhale and exhale. See if you can notice sensations within the nervous system, within the sixth chakra, in that area that you didn't really notice a few minutes ago. This is all really a practice in cultivating subtler awareness. The mantra Om, peace, and the breath helps to direct you into that space of subtler spiritual awareness. So just take another minute. Let the breath be easy and natural. See if you can feel more deeply into the sixth chakra. And then relax your attention in the sixth chakra and feel the awareness flooding back down through the body, through the shoulders and the arms, and the torso and the belly and the back. Feel your awareness permeating, flowing through the hips, the thighs, the knees, down to the feet and the toes. And feel yourself strong in the body. Feel gravity grounding you into the earth with strength and well-being. And think of all beings everywhere and wish them wisdom, love, and clarity. Wish all beings everywhere wisdom, love, and clarity. Just a simple thought where intention is enough. And then we can chant Om 3 times together to conclude the practice. Peace. And I see all of you in well-being and clarity, steadfastly walking your path to self-realization. I see you supported in all the ways that you need. And I see you with an expanded consciousness, able to navigate all the ups and downs and all the situations of your life as you remain established in the self, established in the field of divinity, the field of spirit. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Peace. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today. It was wonderful to see you all again. We'll meet up again in February. A few announcements that we have. The Kriya Yoga, an introduction to Kriya Yoga. Let me see if I can find it for you. I'll share it in the chat box. The Introduction to Kriya Yoga Meditation for Spiritual Growth 12-week class has been released on Teachable. Now, many of you might already have access to this if you're Patreon members. The Kriya Yoga Online Patreon community. I went through these last year. I did one a month. So if you're on Patreon, you can go to the collections and you can find all of these videos there for you already. If you're not a Patreon member and you want to go through the 12-week process, it's an online process. I'm going to send you the link. It's essentially http://kriya-yoga.teachable.com, so you can find it there. It's wonderful for beginners, so if there's anyone you know who might be interested in meditation and Kriya Yoga, you can refer them to that. It's also good for people to review. Another announcement, our March retreat in Pittsburgh, we're near Pittsburgh, which is going to be the 22nd through the 24th. We have a few spaces still left for that. It is filling up pretty quickly. So if you're interested in participating in that weekend retreat, there will be initiation available for prepared students. Meals are provided, lodging, and we'll be focusing primarily on Kriya Yoga as it relates to Shri Yukteswar's approach. You can go to kriyayogaonline.com and go to the events page and find out more there. Otherwise, it's great seeing you, and we'll be in touch soon. So everybody take care and stay warm. Peace.